Yeah, half upset.
Yeah, I'm Nisqy and I'm cooking a Baron. Here it comes. Keep flipping it, guys. Come on. Targamas is coming. Turn on him. Don't let him get in there. Don't get him in there. Hey, they're stealing our Baron. Hey, hey.
Hey, I'm BDS. And that's my Baron, actually. You think it's my flip now. KC! Rather. It's my chef's hat.
I can't believe he just stole it. K-Corp just appeared. BDS just appeared and stole Baron.
Oh, the Baron was so questionable. BDS stole it.
It is the story of the day.
We're going to take a breath here for a second. What? Shout out to Eragon. You know, we all make oopsies. BDS, KC, fair. Credit to KC for just jumping in there.
It could have been a BDS flip, to be fair. We've had a lot of flips today.
Eragon.
Right? I mean, this was a fantastic flip, wasn't it? I mean, look, just how tasty it is.
What? We've lost the plot a little bit, and I'm not going to lie to you, it might be because that first series broke us, but this game one was crazy. And while that Baron steal was terrible from SK, I have no idea what they were thinking. KC do deserve some credit, and it wasn't just that steal that defined the game. KC, and especially in those final moments and across the game, had a lot of really good things to show.
I thought you were taking it. No, I do agree. And I think there was one man who's really keeping them in it for a lot of team fights. I think that was Vladi on the Azir, right? It wasn't just that final fight where he was popping off. It was also just up in that top lane as well, where he managed to find 2 players. So I think he's been doing a great job.
Especially, yeah, because in a lot of these fights, even here, he is TPing into this fight. It will be forcing SK to back off a little bit, and he's not really going in as quickly as he could, because right now, he knows that he needs to buy time. He knows he needs to wait for the Ezreal, and he also anticipated that there will be a threat of the Canna flank coming in. So right now, he's just biding his time and making as much space, and he finds a good moment to pretty much just flip everyone in and kind of bring back the game into KC's hands. But this final fight was something special for me. GB.
No, I mean, I completely agree. There's not much to say to it. Like, he's just had a massive Azir performance, and really to think that this is this guy's first split, like, he's not even had, you know, a split to really ramp into it. This is just the first one we see him where he's popping off, and honestly, it feels like he's been here for ages with the performance he's been able to display.
And his confidence seems like we're seeing it not just in him, right, as a rookie, which is impressive within itself, but this entire team in those final moments. Upset so aggressive across the last 2 series. Canna obviously starts really good on the Jace. We thought it would kind of accelerate there and it would get really crazy. It got a little bit quiet, but even then in the final fight, when it really mattered, he and Upset together. Yes, Vladi really turned that fight around, but it's those two who cleaned it up. And the confidence, again, just to immediately go for the end, to know that you're powerful enough to end in that situation where a lot of teams probably would have settled for an inhibitor and backed off.
I was surprised because I didn't really look at the timer, because usually when there's these fights in the middle game, you don't really get to end, but given that everyone is just so accelerated in the game, the Jace was still very, very strong. Even though he didn't accelerate his lead from the early game, he did farm a lot, stayed relevant in the game, and he maintained his power spike throughout the whole series. But we saw it from K-Corp as well. When they were on PGL with Vladi and Closer, they always talked about how they keep ramping up. They're getting better and better. They gain more confidence with each other. And it is probably for them the first time where they're actually all on the same page. And we saw it ramp up throughout the whole of playoffs.
This is a perfect example of the Odoamne patented Civil War theory. Odoamne, do you want to explain it?
Okay. Okay. So listen. This was a story for backstage, but now I guess I'm here.
You've also told it on Euphoria like 3 times, okay. So it's okay. You can tell the story.
It always starts like this. There's always teams that are starting off a lot stronger than others, and K-Corp is one of those teams that starts at the bottom of the barrel. They have probably their own share of civil wars in winter and spring, but now it's summer. All the teams that did not have a civil war previously in the year, well, since there's only one civil war in the year, it has to come into Summer Split. And since K-Corp probably had their own share of civil war before, now is the time where they're ramping up, because now they're facing teams that are having civil war. I'm not saying that SK is having a civil war, but...
In a civil war, you just mean internal conflict, right? When it's easy to be optimistic when you're winning. When you lose, it's tough. But if you turn it around in the right moment, i.e. Rogue in Malma, things come together. And this is starting to feel, Summer playoffs starting to feel like Casey's Malma.
I mean, absolutely, but I do still think we have to remember This was game one where the early game was majorly in the favor of SK. They were the one running away with the objectives. They were the one finding the most fights. They had a very fed misfortune. Nisqy was doing well on the Corki, and it was that one fight that really changed the moment. We can talk about the Baron as well, but for majority of this game, it was in SK's hands. And this is a best of 3. I don't think we can fully take this away from SK just yet. They're still very much in this game, and I still expect this is going to go all the way to 3 games.
So when we talk about next game, let's talk about adaptation. What do you change on both sides? Because you're right, for KC, it's not like this was a guaranteed thing from start to finish. It did require a little bit of chaos. It did require some missteps for SK. And from SK, what are you doing to clean this up? What are you adjusting? Is it in draft? Is it in early game play? How are both teams, or how would you change things for both teams as we approach game 2?
I mean, I actually really like the approach they had toward Upset, where they just banned away the Kai'Sa and Seri, and they kind of had to force in on a champion like Ezreal. They got 2v2 killed in the early game, and I think Upset is a guy you want to shut down because his priority has been something that KC has been more reliant playing for. So I actually think as SK, you don't need to change much. Maybe for Karmine Corp, you don't actually play strong side for top lane. You put Canna in an even matchup, and you try and help bot lane a little more so you don't run into the same troubles again.
I would agree, because when we saw K-Corp do their best, even though they won this game, it was when Canna was playing more of these, scaling picks that don't really require attention in the early game. The Camille was great and whatnot. But I would like to still put a lot more onus on what made them a lot better before coming to this week, which is the bot lane, the mid lane, and just pretty much pat to there and just play a lot more around there, because the Jace was very strong this game, but at the same time, it wasn't a reliable win condition. We saw it get the lead early game. It didn't really transition his lead into like a bigger lead. He even got solo killed and he kind of threw it away, but at that point, Jace was still fed in the game. But I would like to see a lot more of that responsibility put back into Upset, because the last week he was a monster. He had great performance on the Kai'Sa, and I'm sure that he can do this on other champions as well.
SK obviously selecting blue side again. We will be doing draft at the desk, so it could very much see a repeat of something similar. Now, SK did opt to ban both the Zeri and the Kai'Sa. Upset, of course, finding the most success on those champions, the Kai'Sa especially. Is this a situation where you just, if you're on SK, you just ban the Ezreal too and just see how deep the Upset champion pool goes? We saw G2 try it in game 1 against Fnatic. It looked like a pretty good strategy. Obviously didn't pay off in the long run, as Noah's Jhin kind of worked out in the greater series, but is Upset the kind of player where if you take him off these comfort picks, he can't be that person KC play around?
I mean, did you think the Ezreal was a problem? Personally, I didn't feel it was that big of a problem until he really popped off in the last fight.
I don't think so. I think any ADC you would slot in there would be the same, but also in the series against G2 Fnatic, there were those 14 AD bans were pretty much, actually there's not even 14 bans in the game, but all those bans
between
for
the
ADCs,
picks and the bans, we basically got to 14.
There were for mid lane, I would feel like. So I don't really think they should keep focusing on Ezreal over here, because they did neutralize it. The MF was a very strong pick, and I don't really think that they feel like there's any sort of pressure from the Ezreal over there.
And it says the adaptation. Yeah, the Azir going to be the quick ban now coming through. Of course, for Vladi, this has been one of his strongest, probably his strongest champion overall. Gnar, again, a bit more generic topside ban, and something that Irrelevant is comfortable on. But SK Gaming really focused, it feels like, on these target bans. Like, you can argue, obviously, that Zeri and Kai'Sa are just good meta bans, but when you're playing against Upset, it feels a little bit more personal. I think the same is true with the Azir, and we'll have to see what KC want to prioritize when a lot of these comfort picks are taken away.
Yeah, I mean, there's still so many strong options available, right? Majority of the AP junglers available in this game. Corki is the AD mid laner you still have. When the Azir, when they wanted to default to an AD mid laner in Karmine Corp, we usually saw the Yone come through for them as well, because that was what they found their identity with.
And now, the Ezreal actually going to get picked up here by the side of SK, putting their faith in Rahel or Nisqy, technically. But the immediate response coming from KC, Hwei, Taliyah. Is this, do you feel like, still a super lethal duo? This was a threat around the MSI patches. It was super high prio. Both these champions have, I don't want to say dropped off a cliff, but certainly dropped in priority. Very rarely do we see them together anymore.
I don't think they're as strong as they used to be, because there was also different meta, but now with this return of high mobility ADs that are also played on mid and bot right now, this Ezreal is a flex, and you're kind of securing right now a way to shut it down in case it gets out of control with the lock of Taliyah and Hwei, because point and click, wombo combo, it's going to be good at pretty much any point in the game, and it still allows you some skirmish power in the early game.
SK getting the luxury of Sejuani and Renekton, so kind of set up for topside. If you're KC, you talked a lot about playing around bot mid. Taliyah, good tools to kick things off, obviously strong mid-jungle synergy. What are we looking at for bot lane? Again, 3 champions that Upset has been most successful on thus far, taken away. he can try the MF himself if it's something he wants to pull
Yeah,
out.
I mean, that's really the thing, right? Because if you're not locking in an AD here, you know you're getting banned going into the second ban rotation too, and therefore you just kind of have to go with it. Now it's more about what do we pair up with this? Because you can save the last pick for support if you want to. You already know what you're playing against the top lane.
Definitely. I like this Jinx because it makes the game a lot more snappy. I was thinking that maybe they could do the MF and kind of reverse the matchup, but it would be a little bit too static for the front line that SK has with Renekton and Sejuani. So I do think that this Jinx is the correct approach. I like the Ashe ban because right now you kind of want to neutralize the bot lane matchup, because I do have a feeling that this Ezreal is going to be mid. I don't think that Ezreal is such a good matchup for the Jinx on bot lane, because you're just going to get outscaled and Jinx is just going to have overall a lot more DPS than you do.
Now the Nautilus taken away. Okay, so more point and click removed from the board. Some flex in the Ezreal is obviously nice to have. When we talk about top lane, Canna got a lot of draft focus, got the Jace, right? Did do well with it earlier. With Renekton, top lane's going to feel a little bit different. What are we looking at there? When you see Jinx, I'm immediately like, just give this man an Ornn. Who cares about top side? Ornn versus Renekton, like, is this something that they can just play out, or do you think Canna needs a little bit more for his actual lane matchup?
Well, I don't think I've seen Canna play a lot of these frontliners or the weaker matchups, because I think that players like him, a lot of times when they have the possibility of getting a counter matchup, they would opt for it. Even something like Jax or Camille, which are inherently bad matchups in the early phases of the laning phase, they still scale very, very well in the game, and they allow him to be creative in a way that he wants to be, that Ornn and champions that are a little bit more static and more frontliney don't allow him to. Although they have the Jinx, we have seen a lot of experiments where Jinx is just left to fend for herself, even though she's immobile, where it's more like about the snappy engage and her getting a reset so she can keep herself alive in the team fights.
Yeah, I think there's lots of different ways this draft can still go for Karmine Corp, right? You can get that tank on the top side and play more of Enchanter style down towards the bot side, but you can still play strong side if you want to, and then have engage support available. Nautilus is out, but Luon is still available, so there's still lots of strong options on that end.
I really like that they went for this Ornn though, because it is what you need to win. Because when you build this whole team comp, today we have suffered a lot from, janky team comps, where I feel like there was a little bit of a split identity in the way the teams are being built. Right now, they're all leaning on this whole protect the Jinx, protect Taliyah team comp, where you just layer CC on anyone that is in front of you, your backline will have access to carry that
and
fight.
I feel like we've regressed. We've taken a step back to a previous meta with the Jinx, with the Ornn, with the Hwei now coming in for Nisqy. No, priority on the AP junglers. Very different look in this draft.
Yeah.
What's the read?
Yeah, I don't know what it is really now, because I think it can be risky sending this way into the mid lane, and now you have a position where you're going to get counter-picked at support. You kind of want the winning bot lane down here when you're playing against a scaling pick like the Jinx. You can't really blind Braum as well, because there's Renata, there is Melio as well, that they can just go on the opposite side, that makes it very difficult if you wanted to get a Braum shield against an Ornn ultimate as well. So they kind of have to flip this engage and play for the 2v2. The thing is, Karmine Corp now themselves, they can go Enchanter, they can go for match the aggression themselves. They have so many support options available to them.
I would just go for some sort of disengage where you keep the Rell and the Sejuani Renekton at bay, because right now I do think that you have a lot more backline damage, and you have enough engage. You don't need to all in on more engage. And Rakan is good because it's a mix of, the champion is so versatile and flexible that they can give you more oomph on your engage or assist to the disengage duty over here.
I mean, I certainly think the Rakan is more fluid with a pick like Vi. When she goes in, you got that follow-up, especially since we've seen so much 3v3 around the mid lane as well. So whoever really gets that priority between the Rell and the Rakan is going to have an easier time at making that a mid lane priority instead.
One of the final questions here, as we have a few moments before we toss things over to the caster and get in the game. Odoamne, you talked about mid-bot being set up for success on the side of KC. Do you feel like this draft has set them up for success? Certainly with the Jinx late game, I feel like that case. Are they going to be able to handle this early game? What are the expectations from both of you, really, when we talk about what this early to mid game should look like?
Well, I think that Taliyah Vi should still be stronger. I'm not sure how good the Hwei will be in this game, because even if you get priority, I don't think you can move and make the first step into the river. So I do think that K-Corp kind of ensure themselves that they have enough tools to go through this early into mid game in a good position.
Yeah, I agree. I always trust Upset on a Jinx like this. I think he has a lot of creativity around the way he's spacing with it, and I think it's a dangerous pick in the late game.
Certainly is, certainly can be. That's enough from us here at the desk. Let's send things over to our casters and get into this game to see if KC can close this one out, or if SK will fire back.
Pretty sure he said he was going to sing things over to us, man. It can't
I
sound like
think
singing to
sing.
me.
But he's a rapper, so it's...
Ah,
yeah.
I see. No, that's fair.
That's what rap is, right? Just talking fast.
It's true.
Well,
We're getting ready.
they were just talking, not
They
like
were.
us. What we're going to be doing,
It's talking.
interpretive dance.
Whoa, that's insane, Medic. You're really good at that.
practicing.
Game 2, KC versus SK. KC finding a surprising end to game 1. A single team fight was all it took. And find ourselves back onto the Rift for game 2. Will KC end it here? Will they create an upset, I think is fair to say?
They've got one already, Vedi.
Yeah.
He just
I had to
muted
sneeze.
himself.
I had to sneeze. I'm sorry. I had to mute
You're
myself.
allergic to bad jokes.
It's
is what I
true.
worked
It's
out.
true. Anyway, if KC do win this series, especially if they win in 2-0 fashion, I think that should definitely be considered an upset, especially considering SK did finish first at the end of the regular season. Their only loss was to Fnatic. And SK, expectations high after their first round of the playoffs, really demolishing Heretics, losing to Fnatic, and to lose to KC, I'm sure would be a disappointing. And they are, of course, they are, of course, already locked in season finals due to
SKR,
winning. Yeah, as a result of BDS winning the earlier series.
Only one more team left to go into our season finals, joining Fnatic, G2, BDS, MDK, and SK. And that's between Karmine Corp and Giant X. And if Karmine Corp make top 3, they're our last team in season finals. And if they don't, Giant X are our last team in season finals. But for now, we have the second game of this best of 3 to get through.
It is interesting to see KC bringing out the Jinx once again, because it's kind of been them and BDS that have gone towards this, but last time we saw Upset bring it out, it was in that massive turnaround fight that he had against MDK, where he just about managed to clutch it out and claw that game back for Karmine Corp. Have to see if he can be that late game insurance, because that, once again, is kind of where Karmine Corp seem to put all their eggs, is, hey, we've got this super late game scaling composition, and it's going to be on SK to see if they can try and disrupt that, with just coming off kind of that 1 to 2 out of a spike with their way their composition set up.
I mean, I do think KC have a lot of agency with the mid-jungle duo. I mean, Taliyah Vi was the meta. Was it the beginning of this split, or was it even last split in spring? I just remember this duo in particular.
Vi, Taliyah, Vi, Ari, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we've obviously moved away from that with the introduction of AD carries, but we were joking about the fact that we've got mages in mid. It's like the game is changing back to what it was before AD carries. But exciting to see what can happen. It does mean that there's a lot more like burst damage in team fights, and there's a lot of range on the side of SK, a lot of poke, looking at this Hwei and Ezreal duo. Meanwhile, on our screens right now, we have SK invading on the bot side of the map. Closer can do naught but stand and watch as his blue buff is taken away.
Yeah, Luon using the pressure they'd already developed in bot lane by forcing Targamas and Upset away from the first wave to step in with Isma, who might look for a little foray back towards this jungle. Upset standing underneath this tower, able to dodge away from the mystic shots of Rahel, and Isma unable to get in range of the Gromp in time to sneak that one away as well.
Nice job, though, to just keep Closer in check, because as Betty was kind of saying, it feels like Closer is kind of where if you can keep him in order, although maybe setting up for a play on this bottom side, I think that's where you can try and keep Karmine Corp in check as a whole in the early stages and kind of set up SK for a strong moment. I think Closer here more to cover for the push out of his bottom lane, just making sure that Isma hasn't stuck around. But Isma's gone back into his own jungle for one camp. Does not mean that he's going to pick up the 2. May actually just try and play on this bottom side. Nice ward from SK to spot out the Closers here, though.
Closer spotted, still just shadowing to make sure this wave gets shoved out.
Oh, they have the timing.
Yeah, Isma might just wait for the back. Targamas going in, immediately engaged onto Upset. The cleanse away, has used the flash as well, but the ignite is still ticking. Closer that keeps Isma at bay, but there's the permafrost stun. Upset CC'd up with the slow as well, but they just can't get close enough to put the damage down. Rahel flashes for first blood. Targamas almost following Rahel, tanks another tower shot. Nisqy sneaking behind the back here. Vladi has TP, might have to invest it to save his bot lane, but Nisqy with the grasping more finds one. Targamas almost follows, but able to heal himself back up with a Gleaming Quill. TP invested by Vladi. Can catch that wave.
He's too late, though. I mean, the play's already happened. Nisqy got the kill. Rahel gets the kill as well. Nicely done to do so. And it means that Casey's bot lane already behind. And this is what we're talking about. If Isma can try and disrupt where Closer is, he can set up for plays. But now Vladi, a bit overextended, but Nisqy's got no mana.
Nice energy there, gentlemen. We look back at the play, and they see the jungler on the ward, but they commit to the play anyway. They get the summoner spells out from Upset very early, and you can see Isma trying to find an angle, but there's 2 members of KC standing in his way. But then The defense isn't quite strong enough, but they still can't quite land that last hit. The Q comes through, the flash committed from Rahel. He secures that kill. Unfortunately for SK, they realize, there's not really much more we can do here, but Nisqy's already made a roam down. He's able to get that kill onto Upset. Very little that he can do with those summoner spells. Unfortunately for Isma, he's already tanking the tower before he even lands an auto attack, which means Targamas with a nice flash is able to get that outplay, and now he finds himself with the double buff.
Which I think SK will want to get off him lickety split, although as he moves in towards mid lane to try and just help cover for Vladi there, I think it will be relatively difficult, but I don't think he's going to be able to get too much value
I will
out of
say,
it.
of all the champions in the game that could have double buff, I do think Rakan is probably one of the worst ones.
Yeah. So many gleaming quills, though.
So many.
Probably energy champions aren't great with it. I mean...
Oh, they still get value.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And
It's,
it's so
it's more that
cooldown
like, he
reliant, it's
can't, I
actually
feel like he
important,
can't
right?
really
Like, I guess,
use the red buff that much.
Healing.
Sure. But yeah, do you find on your Rakan you ever run out of mana?
I never get double buffs, mate. Let's be honest, I'm dying in that
Wasn't my
position.
question, but that's fair enough. Dragon going to be secured there for SK. Grubs are up. Honestly surprised to not see that being the bigger objective. But circumstance allows SK to secure this objective. Golf claps across the arena. As SK find themselves in a similar position to game 1, where it's SK that lead in the bot lane 2 versus 2. And Upset, with his clans coming up soon, is just forced to play defensively, especially with this Rakan at his side.
Yeah, I think it's still difficult for KC to contest for these Void groups, because we just say, hey, look, Isma gets Dragon, but you've already got push on top lane guaranteed for Relevant, and Hwei out-pushes Vladi as well, so you always have the support for Isma here from your solo laners, which makes it very tough for Closer getting in here. Might try and just steal away one and then hop out, but doesn't have the flash, so has to be careful.
Someone's dashing away with the battle dance there to make sure that he didn't get caught by the shattering strike. Rahel already level 6 though, so always has the added threat of the true shot barrage, or just the wave clear of it. Can join a fight on the top side with it if something does a big in, but SK getting both the neutral objectives to start us off. Upset's flash about to come back off cooldown, so he'll have a little bit more safety in that bottom lane. He's sitting about 6,500 gold. That's not really how you say that, is that? 605, wow.
It's been a long day.
650 gold behind. Now it's down to 600. I've been talking for so long. The gold lead has changed in the bot lane. But yeah, sitting about 650 gold behind.
You have been speaking for about 2.5 hours, kind of straight, Medic, so it's okay. You're allowed to fumble words every now and then.
We used both of our collective brain cell on that one synergistic moment, and then it went out the window.
It's only been 2.5 hours?
Well, I mean, you think
we
about...
started at 5, man. It's 4 hours.
So you had like a 42-minute game, and then you had a 40-minute game, and then you had a 30-minute game. So you just kind of add all those up, you know, something like that.
Oh, sure.
Anyway, game 5 of the day. Irrelevant.
Game 15 of the weekend for Rob?
50,
yes.
Yeah.
What
It's been a chill weekend.
Irrelevant finds himself with about a 2-wave lead on the top side, kind of as you'd expect in this matchup, and just as a player, this is something that he often does. He did struggle in the matchup a little bit in game 1, but to his credit, he was still doing very well in the farm department. We'll say, though, Canna's Shock Blast ended up being massive in the late game team fights. Now we see supports making their way towards mid, as is often the case, looking mainly to clear out vision, providing support for their mid laners as they continue to trade farm back and forth.
I think it's unfair for the supports to play in mid lane, though, because there's no longer AD carries, so support shouldn't be there. So I think it just shouldn't happen anymore. But it does make sense, especially when you've already got Closer in a decent position to try and set up for a nice little push through onto this bottom side, contest the red.
Canna calls the Forge God. Flashes away, because otherwise Irrelevant could have stunned him immediately. Still, they look for the dive. Permafrost down on him. Isma tanking the tower well, and SK get the kill and get out.
Very clean setup, and there's not really much complication needed. They don't need to wait for a stacked wave. They just escort the wave underneath the tower. They make the dive look good. They even get Canna's flash. Meanwhile, SK's bot lane is forced to play defensively. Closer in the right place, but no dive really possibility onto this Ezreal route.
Yeah, I mean, it is really strong for SK to get the play, but I still think in the grand scheme of things, if KC are able to get some more gold onto Upset, it probably helps them out in the long run. Realistically, I think Upset going to be the big carry that you need to deal with, and Irrelevant, I think, as the game goes on, will struggle to get into these fights, so we're probably looking at more trying to leverage the fact he has that early Black Cleaver into Void Grubs in a minute and a half and try and snowball the game as effectively as you can in the mid-game through all these early objective takes for SK.
Kind of comes back to what we talked about in game 1. Your increasing the effective misery for Canna in the top lane. And the net misery of the game stays even because Upset's misery has been reduced. As the quickness comes out from Targamas, they look for Rahel. Can't quite get the damage down onto him. Didn't mean that he has to pop the barrier. Targamas used heal to keep himself topped up. Isma working his way down towards this bottom side, but Upset has both his summoners back up. So has that relative blanket of safety in case he is dived.
Nisqy was hovering on the bot side river, looking to maybe regroup with his jungler to set up for a play. Vision from Casey coming in on the bot side of the map meant that they were keeping track of what Isma was up to. Renekton now very deep into the enemy jungle. He can find closer here, I think he will. Here comes Isma as well, but Vault Breaker will take closer to safety. Nothing too crazy happening as neutral objectives are respawning. They're going to be up at about the same time. I would imagine Nisqy will turn their attention to the top side of the map as a reset comes out.
Rahel's going to true shot barrage Upset here.
Oh, huge. Delaying the bank. As we see in mid lane, Luon.
Doesn't have flash, but has enough of a health bar just to walk that one away.
Push in mid, will set SK up for control over the river. They're actually committing to the bot side of the river, even though the Renekton has full control over the top wave. I expected them to go for the groves, but I guess they know that Upset's back is delayed, right? Thanks to the true shot barrage.
Yeah, and I think the fact that they're able to get some vision down as well, just to spot exactly where everyone is going to be very nice. And maybe even in a position, honestly, to contest Void Grubs after this as well, just with how quickly they've taken it. You can even see Irrelevant just poking his head in towards Void Grubs to spot out the closers on it now. But is this just a dive on bot side instead? I think SK, unsure of exactly how they want to approach this.
Isma's on his way back up.
Irrelevant forces closer away. Even if he was just able to steal one of these, it would have been great for SK because it gets him over that 4 mark, which of course you need for the mites to spawn. Vladi did burn his flash in the mid lane play, which we only saw the end of with Luon trying to walk away, so no summoner for the KC mid lane. Looks like it's going to be double Drake, 6 grubs, something we see relatively rarely in modern League of Legends.
Not ideal.
We didn't see it in old League of Legends either because grubs didn't exist.
Correct.
But it's also just the fact of how quickly it's done, right? Like 12.5 minutes into the game and you already have 2 dragons alongside that. We were saying SK want to set up for a strong mid-game. Well, we're kind of going back to what was old League of Legends of, hey, you know, in the next 10 minutes, you're going to have a potential soul up for SK right as you're hitting those second items. And this is perfect for SK, so great control from SK in these early stages and keeping KC in check with what we were talking about is just the late game scaling for KC just isn't strong enough right now to compete with them.
Thing as well is Jinx is not the most mobile AD carry, and there's a lot of engage on the side of SK. Upset's going to have a tough time dealing with all these threats diving on top of him. The good news is champions like Taliyah will be able to provide a degree of peel. Also, there's a lot of engage on the side of KC that can perhaps be used to mitigate the strength that SK has right now. It's a 2k gold overall with a lot of that sitting on top of Irrelevant, and he's going to be the scary target for Upset that he has to deal with.
I think it's also just a lot of long-range damage from SK is really difficult for Upset because it's, you know, the Severing Bolt from Nisqy, the ult from Rahel over the top, and Canna.
Oh, Fear misses, but Canna, even trying to clear out the wave, doesn't get all of the minions. His tower falls, spiraling Despair down on him, but he's still tanky enough to survive. Vladi going in, Nisqy on the wrong side of the wall, but perhaps it's Vladi who's being caught as the seismic shove doesn't hit. Nisqy flashes away from it. Irrelevant chasing Canna down. Vladi's already going to go down. Upset takes a kill, though. Irrelevant's able to get one in response as Canna falls. Upset flashing forward, misses the zap, but should still be able to kill off Isma. Can he get excited enough to dodge away from this? Luon goes in with a Magnet Storm, and Upset is left to the Wolves. SK find 3.
An explosive fight that happens in the top side of the map that SK end up making work. Remember that it's SK that tried to force the dive. They wanted to secure a tower and convert that into a kill onto Canna. The TP start getting thrown out and it ends up in this crazy back and forth, which SK ultimately end up the victors.
I think there was a little bit of a disconnect between Vladi and Canna, though. I'm not sure if we're going to get a replay. We see it here, but watch, you could have actually gone on towards the pillar, which is going to pop up in a second. So we see the initial play of the ult coming down. Nisqy ends up missing the fear. Canna tries to clear it the way, but doesn't get it. But he throws down this pillar right as Vladi completes the TP. You could go forward onto Nisqy here and then zone off, but he ends up using that charge back. Doesn't go forward with Nisqy, which means that then Vladi gets caught out. Canna tries to run away, but Irrelevant's able to finish him off. And now it's a very spread out fight. So it felt like there's a bit of a discoordination between everyone coming into this play. And I think that's where it fell apart for KC, and SK then, with those numbers coming through, were able to carry the fight over.
Also, Targamas is never really able to join the fight, right? You can't get that quickness down because Karmine Corp have had to funnel up towards the top side of the river. It's a 3,500 gold lead for SK. Next Drake up in a minute and a half, and it's been pretty clean for them so far.
Also, Upset lost his flash, which is...
Yeah.
It's going to make things harder for him to play when there's so much engage on the side of SK. Canna's falling behind, and while his responsibility is to just be a tank, he's conceding so much pressure on one side of the map, which Irrelevant is, like, look at him right now. He's forced underneath this tier 2. Irrelevant's pushed him all the way back and has now made his way down towards mid. Dragon's still a minute away, so Canna can easily rejoin his team. But this Ornn pick, as you would expect into the Renekton matchup, always a difficult one, but SK have made it extra difficult by throwing so much attention up towards top.
Massive lead for Nisqy in the mid lane as well. 1.2k his advantage. Doesn't have his Seraphs as stacked up as Vladi's, but already has the Fated Ashes to join it. The Drake up in 30 seconds. Karmine Corp really don't have any deep vision. They did manage to get one ward behind the Dragon Pit and had Scuttle Crab, but the river mostly in control of SK as Rahel is just going to push Upset back in the mid lane. Did miss that Mystic shot, but I'm sure he's okay farming the minion with an auto attack afterwards.
SK want to try and get this vision down in this bot side jungle so they can threaten on towards the bot tier 1, but KC trying to intercept that. You're in a fairly decent spot for KC to just defend this choke. Even investing the TP from Canna, they really want to try and go for this.
Caught. Okay, no follow-up from SK for a second. I thought with the gaze of the Abyss that Targamas would be engaged on there. Rift Tower goes down in the mid lane. Won't kill the tower with a single charge, but SK can back it up. Irrelevant's going to be the one charging in. So takes a chunk. Vladi jumping away. Glacial Prison hits onto Upset, who uses the cleanse. No summoners now on the Karmine Corp AD carry. Mid lane tower falls. Severing Bolt from Nisqy is dodged, but it's in a very powerful position, and SK will once again reclaim control of the river.
It's SK that are the driving force here in Game 2. We saw a very similar state of affairs in Game 1, but the objective control is significantly more dominant this time around for SK. You can tell that they've got frustrated with how that previous game ended, and they seem a lot more disciplined in allowing KC any opportunities to fight back.
What do you do if you're KC in this sort of position? It's easy to say, you know, scale. Get the Jinx to 2-3 items, perhaps you can become powerful enough to take down SK, but they're not giving you the opportunities to farm safely. They're constantly burning some of Upset's summoners, so he's never in a really safe position. And every time we see a fight, it seems to be on SK's terms.
I think the biggest thing is just trying to get vision so then you can at least hold on to your topside jungle. Especially now that that dragon has gone down, there's going to be Baron in a minute and a half, and you're going to try and avoid the opportunities for SK to really force anything. But as you say, you're just in a position where Dragon and Soul are going to come up way too quickly before you have your Jinx in a comfortable position. So maybe Vladi can get some push on topside and you can try and cut people off. But again, it comes back to the fact that Rahel, Luon, very mobile, difficult to lock down. You want to try and more play for a pick onto Nisqy, but oftentimes he's having Isma in tow. Like you can even see in this top side, already Luon and Isma there because they want Nisqy to be able to collect on the top wave, but forcing KC out is the first point that you need to make happen.
I think KC's game plan was to leverage their strong mid-jungle duo to find picks and gain control of a mid to attack sides, but even if you did that, what side do you attack?
Yeah.
I think that trying to play towards a Jinx Rakan lane is a difficult thing to do, as we already saw as an example in the first part of this game, right, where SK was able to get that counter gank. And then are you going to play for an Ornn instead towards top side? I just think there was a bit of a disconnect in terms of what their mid-jungle wants to do and then the actual side lanes that you then try to play through. In an ideal world in the mid-game, you'd be looking at a potential, like, have someone split push and then allow Vladi to then potentially collapse, you know, use the ultimate to then create a numbers advantage, find a pick, use numbers to then convert that into a neutral. But right now they just don't have the options because they can't really kill the Renekton. Nisqy is only ever going to the side of the map where there's a tower, and fun fact, there are towers everywhere. But he clears out that top wave and then he moves into Fog of War. He clears out the vision with his team and he never oversteps his bounds. He's mainly playing with his team rather than, he's like collect the wave, regroup with his team, and if he does need to push further, look on your screen right now, there's a perfect example. He needs to push another wave out so his team comes to him. So he's always playing as like this collective four, and the person that's being left isolated is the Renekton, while Ezreal kind of solo holds mid lane because that's Ezreal. So it's very difficult for KC to actually find opportunities. Right now they're kind of relying on, we need to get as many items as we can, let's get these upgrades, and then we can look to try and find a pick or a play around Baron or the next dragon.
I think if you're KC, actually, the only real like windows of opportunity that Vedi I think he's talking about is like the trying to catch SK as they come out of on a reset. So if you can try and hold on to your outer towers here as Targamas now, but there is moments where you can shove out waves, you forego a reset, and you play off of the fact that SK would have assumed you would have reset and try and find a pick onto Nisqy.
Right.
Then you get the reset and TP back out with Vladi. But that requires you to basically try and play something funky, which is Canna drops a side wave and immediately tries to turn on towards Rahel. Use the fact that Closer has this point and click CC and try and play for that. But with how much vision is set up on this top side, it becomes really difficult to do so. So I think this moment where maybe you can drift Canna across is your one moment to try and go for something here.
I think that was a good example where you saw Nisqy top, Closer was actually running top through the lane, and then there could have been a TP play there, for example. Right? These are the very narrow windows you're kind of looking for, but unfortunately, the Scryer's Bloom comes out, spots the ward, they clear it out, and now Nisqy's safe. But this is what he'll keep doing when he's alone. He'll just catch the wave when it's here, he'll get rid of it, and then he'll back off. Now the Baron's being started, SK's the one to force it. Let's see how KC respond.
See if they really know. They've got that one ward outside the pit that spots Rahel and Luon walking away. Now Luon will clear that out. Karmine Corp going to step forward. Rahel once again walks away from it, as do the rest of SK.
You don't get anything for it though. So SK going to go back to trying to start
war mogs, right? So Isma just heals back up, clear out the control ward, and you can start it back up on the resets if you so desire.
But they're kind of fishing for a TP from Canna, but Canna had already started to walk up, run into Irrelevant, so they knew that neither top laner was going to TP in, so SK pull off. And at least for the moment, KC not falling for the bluffs from SK, and this is kind of given that moment that we're talking about to push out waves, try and group, and find SK before they re-establish themselves in the map. They haven't reset. This is kind of KC hoping they can catch, but haven't been able to get anything.
KC's about as strong as they can be heading into this next dragon fight, right? 2 items secured mid, 2 items secured on AD carry. And so I guess the pressure is on right now, because if they lose Soul, it's only going to get worse from here. SK though, they've gained control over mid, they've abandoned the bot wave, they have full vision, and they can just use their poke from Hwei and Ezreal. Of course, Ezreal pushing out the mid wave. KC have found an avenue into the river though, as they path bot and they start off the Drake.
And Closer looking for that flank. Rahel is still on the mid wave. True Shot Barrage comes out. Closer's going to be spotted. Jumps onto Nisqy. Call of the Fortune coming down as well as Canna looks for the CC. Nisqy flashes away, but Rahel joins the fray. Closer's already down, and although Karmine Corp found a flank, they immediately lose their jungler.
That was a nice attempt from Closer, but Vladi was just a little bit too far away. They couldn't get the combo off onto Nisqy, and it means that SK are able to rout them where they stand.
I mean, it's become a one-sided affair for SK as they dominate from the early game. And things are looking promising. They're looking to bring us to a game 3. KC are going to have to find another miracle fight, but it's a great representation of how difficult these fights are going to become for KC. Is the idea there is good, maybe find an initial pick, but it's very difficult for Upset to follow up. Canna on the front line is, in that previous fight, he didn't have Sunfire. He was so squishy. Now, as we look back at it, you'll see how quickly this front line of KC disappears.
Yeah, and it's a nice try. Closer gets onto Nisqy, but even Vladi flashing in to try and get the flick back, can't get it. Means that then Nisqy's able to step away, and then the Ornn doesn't come over the top. And from that position, then SK are able to just re-establish themselves in that front to back, and KC can't do anything.
That ulti from Isma was fantastic.
Yeah.
As Vladi, as you rightly called, Dagda, he tried to immediately follow up on that, but he was shut down instantly. So great play from the jungler of SK there. And now with the Baron buff, SK, Targamas looking for a bit of a flank. I don't think there's much for him to flank, so he's going to try and regroup with his team. SK now need to begin their siege onto the base. They've set their sights on the top tier 2. KC in a position to defend.
Someone is available for Upset, none for Closer, or at least no flash, nor for Vladi. Nisqy, no flash of his own, but the rest of SK have theirs at their disposal. Seismic Shove will bring back a couple of the minions, but can't catch the cannon, so that will continue to wrestle away on this tower. Rahel tanks a couple of shots. Irrelevant in the mid lane. Pushed out bot, now mid, gets the tier 2. Karmine Corp start to react to it, and we'll forfeit a tier 2 in the top lane as well.
As you would expect, KC kind of retreating back to their last line of defense. Irrelevant makes his way back towards bot. And they're just looking for a mistake from SK to come through. You know that SK, though, is so aware after what happened in Game 1. They don't want to make that blunder again. They don't want to end their Summer Split just yet. While they have secured a spot in the season finals, they still want the chance of winning Summer Split. Road ahead, of course, is very difficult with Fnatic waiting in the upper bracket finals and G2 in the lower.
Yeah, and BDS in the one before that.
True.
So, a difficult road for you to go through if you are going to make it to be crowned the champion of the summer playoffs. Isma looking here, already used the Glacial Prison. Irrelevant going in with the Dominus as well, trying to see if they can get something out of upset, but he's shepherded back by the rest of his team. And because Karmine Corp had to invest in that top side, they lose their mid lane inhib. Targamas going in with the quickness, but a Magnet Storm of Irrelevant flashes the wall, and it's all done. It's all over, but the Nexus falling. Upset tries to get away, but he can't escape Rahel. SK wipe away a Karmine Corp. The inhibitor in the mid lane will fall shortly after the fight. The Nexus will fall shortly after that. And we're going to Game 3.
SK cleanly wipe off Game 1 and say, no lads, we're not going over easy. Immediately bouncing back in game number 2 with a fantastically well-controlled game.
I mean, yeah, from start to finish, they got every single neutral objective. They mitigated any playmaking potential from KC. And it was a one-sided affair. Clean game from SK. We're going to Game 3.
Yeah, probably the cleanest game we have seen today. In a couple of moments, we might go to a break, but
you're ready then.
Well, it's like every other game has been immediately after the game ends. Hey, let's get into a break so we can get back to the analyst desk quickly. Now, apparently we can go to a break. I'm going to keep talking for a little bit just to mess with them. Let's keep talking about whatever we want. We can just talk about whatever we want. What do you want to talk about, Reddy? You want to talk about something else?
Break time.
There's more games.
Break time.
Woo! Whee! Yay! Oh, I have to say it, apparently. We'll go to a break. Why is Benny saying it not good enough? Huh? Can't believe it.
Professionals.
Red Bull gives you wings.